Today, we're going to be taking a look into one of the first skateboard manufacturers in the entire world. They've been making skateboards for professionals and consumers since 1976. With 48 years of experience, they're also one of the longest running skateboard brands to date, and they've collected some pretty mentionable accolades along the way. For example, Madrid made the very skateboard Marty McFly rides in the movie Back to the Future. Madrid Skateboards was the first company to ever advertise in Thrasher magazine, and they were the first skate company to collaborate with Vans shoes. Madrid made the skateboards rode by Max in Stranger Things 3, and they've made some of the most recognizable brands and boards in skateboarding. Skateboards so unique, other manufacturers wouldn't take on the project. Welcome to the Madrid Skateboard Factory and Warehouse. Today, you and I will get an exclusive behind-the-scenes look into the Madrid brand, factory, distribution, family, and legacy. The Madrid Skateboards brand is housed under Full Circle Distribution, which also houses other brands like Autobahn Wheels, Prism Skateboards, Santa Monica Airlines, Cadillac Wheels, Blood Orange Wheels, Flypaper Grip Tape, Rogue, Venom, and Caliber Trucks. Every brand housed under Full Circle is manufactured and distributed at the Madrid factory, right here in Huntington Beach, California, USA. But obviously, Madrid didn't just start out in a huge factory and warehouse. It started in the late 1960s with Jerry Madrid, who ended up becoming the designer and inventor of the concaved double kick skateboards that we all ride today.
Hi, my name's Jerry Madrid. I'm the founder of Madrid Skateboards. Founded this in 1976. Started making surfboards in the mid-60s and developed the surfboard line and moved right into the skateboard line in 76. I'm still doing it currently today. First started making surfboards in my mom and dad's garage in Norwalk, California. So when I was in high school, I would go down to Hobie's in Dana Point and watch what those guys were doing down there. Then I started doing it on my own, and so I started making boards for just friends, family and friends, and for myself. But then in college, 1969-70, I got drafted into the Army. So because I was still going to school and I got a job as an apprentice for Volkswagen, I was able to get a student deferment. So I worked at Volkswagen of America for 4 years. During that time, I was still making surfboards and surfing quite a bit. I had a backyard ramp. I had the first half pipe in Huntington Beach. I think the biggest influence is being able to ride a big ramp like that. Nobody else was doing anything like that. We had the first real ramp in Huntington Beach. So after surfing, we go skate. It was more of a hobby. It was more just being creative. I learned to shape surfboards, and that was one of the things I really loved to do. And when I started getting into skating, we just made some basic type of skateboard laminates. They were little pieces of plywood, basically, and I'd make a rocker out of them. A friend of mine's father-in-law had a shoe making company, and they were making the soles, and they'd bend the soles out of 3mm birch. And so he showed me how they did that, and I took that and made a rocker mold for skateboards. So it was the first thing we pressed it with seat clamps and all that. Well, a couple of the things that came about by accident, and then one by necessity. The concave came in by accident. When you laminate a piece of plywood, and you have to have equal amounts of cross grain and straight grain to hold the shape. So if that one of those are missing, it's going to bow and bend, it's going to be warp. And we just happened that we had pressed a couple blanks without one cross grain. So what it caused it to do was to warp and make a concave. So we had the customer that came in, we were looking at them, and I found that these blanks had been warped. And he said, hey, why don't you try set one up? So we cut one out, made a shape out of it, and cut it up, put some trucks and wheels on it, wrote it, and it was like, that was the concave that lived today. So we had to figure out a way to do that consistently. So because of my experience with surfboard making and mold making, I was able to carve out some molds to reproduce that same concave on a regular basis. There was other ones that were being molded in fiberglass and that kind of stuff, but this was actually a plywood molded board. And if you look at some of the original Thrasher ads, Santa Cruz shows those concaves that they say they did them themselves, but we actually made them for them, and we sold them and made them for those guys. Because at the time, we weren't trying to do a brand, we were just doing a manufacturing. Secondly, is we did a board with a lift-up nose, and the reason I did that is because I wasn't that good of a skater, so when I'd pump on a half pipe, my foot, because their wheelbases were so small, and the wheelbase from the nose is really short, my foot would tend to slide off from pumping. So I lifted up the nose so my foot would get stuck there. So once it did that, the noses just kept getting longer and longer and longer. So that was a couple things, concave and the double kick.
I'd say those are definitely some pretty big couple things there. So you guys are responsible for taking the skateboard that was previously flat.
Yes.
And giving it concave.
Yes.
And also the skateboard that had the short, stubby, flat nose, you made it so we could do nollie flips.
Yeah, and to me it was just to hold my foot in place, but from there it grew to a longer nose.
At your prime as a manufacturer in the skateboard industry, who were you making decks for? And how many boards would you say you were making a month?
First we were doing about 20,000 boards a week.
20,000 a week?
20,000 a week. We were doing boards for Veriflex, Sims, Valterra, Madrid. We were cranking. It was going crazy. A lot of employees, a lot of team riders, and during that period, we had got embezzled from two of our employees. So that kind of took the wind out of our sails. So we kind of lost a lot of momentum during that period. And that was mid-'80s, mid-'87, '88. But that was a lot of boards. We were producing a lot of boards.
That is a lot of boards.
A lot of boards.
Yeah.
That was after the Back to the Future movie. That kind of turned into a whole different category of boards.
Back to the Future really like put a boom in the skateboard industry, huh?
Completely. It was down in the dumps at that point because parks were gone. All that kind of stuff was kind of took a downturn, and that kind of brought a little bit of a street scene to light then. What
is your favorite graphic that you've made?
Man, there's so many. I think probably the most successful and favorite one is the John Lucero Jester. That was probably one of the best ones that we did. That was all John's artwork.
That's the same John that went on to own and run Black Label Skates,
yeah,
right?
Exactly.
Yeah. That's awesome. So for me, Black Label was a huge influence in my skating. Growing up as a kid, the Label Kills was one of the first videos I ever saw. So he came here from Madrid too.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
We had my whole philosophy with the manufacturing was we would sponsor a lot of skaters, a lot of amateur skaters. We sponsored riders all through the United States and in Europe. My whole thinking was to just support the industry, support the sport, and supply all these skaters back east with the backyard zines and stuff. They would make their own contests, and we'd flow them some product. So we gained a lot of guys from back east, Midwest, and they all became part of our team. So my philosophy then was, because we were mainly a manufacturer, we would manufacture for Sims, for Santa Cruz, for Powell, all those guys. And as we brought those riders in, we would turn them out. We're like a farm team. So we farmed them out to become pros for these other companies.
It's like recycling, just giving back to the skateboard industry.
Right.
That's what you've been doing all these years.
Yeah.
How has being in the industry changed since 1976?
I think the biggest change is internet. The internet advertising is immediate. Back in the day, you do an ad in a magazine, you know, full page, quarter page, whatever, and you put it out, and you wouldn't see any results for 6 months, 8 months. And if you had to produce product, you'd produce it and store it until that ad came out, and hopefully that ad's going to make your sales go up. Today, it's immediate. We can throw stuff out there, just create a new product, put it out there, and take pictures of it. You guys put it up right away, and we get sales. So we can pre-book orders pretty easily, and that gives us time to make them. Having our own facility here is we can turn around and make whatever we need to in a matter of weeks and days sometimes. Okay, I try to help guys along the way, manufacturers. I usually don't try to hide anything. That's probably a downfall of mine. But Paul Smith called me from Florida, and he wanted to know how to make a mold, how to make a concave board, and I politely helped him. I told him how to do it, what to do, and he came out to California from Florida, and he visited the factory, and I explained to him even further how to do it. And you know, obviously later became one of the top manufacturers and a competitor of mine. But it's all fair game.
Paul Schmidt, he's another big name. There is one very big difference, I believe, though. Doesn't he get his wood from Mexico? Right?
He presses all his wood in Mexico.
And ours is pressed right here in the United States.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Well, he has a small facility, R&D facility in Costa Mesa, but his main manufacturing is in Mexico.
It didn't take long for me to sit with Jerry and see how humble and genuine he is towards skateboarding and surfing. Not just as an industry, but as a passion. He's kind of like an unspoken godfather in skateboarding, and he definitely isn't some corporate freak show who wanted to dominate the whole industry and keep it all to himself. He shared his knowledge to help build a solid foundation for countless skaters, some of which went on to start their own brands, only contributing to the growth and overall success of skateboarding as a community.
We're here at Madrid Skateboards / Full Circle Distribution, which is the distribution arm of our company. We do distribute a handful of other brands, but this is pretty much how the whole system starts. So when we're making our skateboards, everything comes out of this factory. All of our boards are still made right here in California. As you can see, like this whole stack is literally sheets of top quality Canadian maple. And so basically, yeah, when you're making a skateboard, it all kind of starts right here with these planks and planks of Canadian maple. This is our big nasty glue machine. So all these layers of plywood will come off these stacks and they'll be fed through this machine that's basically going to coat everybody in this really nasty wood glue. So those guys come out of here, they'll stack up here and kind of get pushed together and organized, and then those stacks will go right into these concave molds. These are hydraulic presses, and these are some of the very first original concaves and molds ever developed in skateboarding. And this is all from Jerry Madrid, going back to 1976. Started out in Santa Fe Springs. We moved over to a different factory in Huntington Beach about 20 or so years ago. And so we've been in this spot now for that 25 years. But everything's still made on site, made right here in California, which is pretty awesome. This is what actually comes out of those concave molds. So this is essentially an unfinished, unshaped skateboard at this stage. So you can see it's pressed in the concave. So all these guys right here are basically just unshaped boards, which will be headed into the wood shop where they'll get cut and shaped. So yeah, that's a ton of boards waiting to be cut. It's pretty gnarly. This is obviously kind of the coolest spot where the true magic starts to happen. So this is our wood shop and factory. As you can see, there's a lot of sawdust and dirt, but there is a lot of history on the walls of this factory. So you'll take those basically pressed boards. You'll come over to this guy, which is our shaping sander guy. So when we develop a shape, whether it's for our, just one of our stock shapes, whether it's for a pro rider, once we have a sample confirmed, it goes into becoming what we call a master template. It's basically just a gigantic fat skateboard at that point. It has these handles on it because when you crank this guy on, you'll actually shape the board by hand all on this guy here. So human hands are making every skateboard that comes out of the Madrid factory. Essentially, they're kind of roughed out of that shape. So you can kind of tell by these edges, super harsh edges. Obviously still not cleaned up, not back sanded, no truck holes, but this is basically what comes out of that shaping area there. So these will all be stacked up here to go into the first stage of finishing. Big bad boys here are where the boards are going to get sanded on their edges, and you'll actually sand these guys down, get some smooth edges, get all that like funky stuff cleaned up from the cutting. And again, these are all going to be done by hand on these sanding machines. Hop over here. This is our truck hole drill. So once these guys are cleaned up, this massive hydraulic drill will put in our truck holes. Custom machinery by Ron Mills Company for Madrid Skates.
That's awesome.
Pretty rad. So this guy back here, this is our wheel well sander. So this is basically if we do a board that has wheel wells, which, for people that absolutely don't know, these are going to be these divots in the side of the boards that are going to go under the trucks and wheels if you're riding a bigger wheel. You don't want to get that wheel bite. So definitely a lot of our retro shapes tend to still have wheel wells. This is actually a downhill performance board that has wheel wells. Basically just prevents your wheels from digging into the board when you're riding. So
and that's something too, like Madrid doesn't just stick in one corner of the skateboard market.
Yeah,
you
totally.
guys make any and all skateboards, not just street performance boards. I mean, we're talking reissues, cruisers,
Across the board.
shapeboards,
Yeah, exactly.
long boards.
Totally.
Anything you could think of. And you guys take on a lot of projects that the rest of the manufacturers in the industry don't even want to do. Like when companies are trying to find someone to make a board, no one else will make it. Madrid usually does.
Yeah, totally. I mean, a big part of our business is still what we call like OEM or aftermarket or custom projects for people. And I think what, the unique position Madrid is in is we can literally, as you can kind of see on the wall with some examples, we can damn near make anything that you can think of as far as shapes go. I mean, good example up here is just a Vans shoe board that we did. Shapes and sizes of all kind of things you can imagine. Like, chances are we can do it. I don't know that yet we've really ever said no or we can't do that to someone. It could probably happen in the future. We've not said that so far. This is a prime example of some of the things we're capable of doing right now.
Oh my God.
Believe it or not, that's not actually a skateboard, although you can imagine like setting this thing up and trying to skate this thing, but this is actually a sandboard. This isn't quite finished and shaped out yet, but these guys will take this and literally skate down sand dunes.
Is that kind of like snowboarding in the summer?
That's exactly it.
I've seen videos. I want to try that.
Totally,
that looks
man.
awesome.
These guys wanted a way to be able to do this year round and not have to rely on like good fresh snow and like deep snowpack. So that's a sandboard. This is kind of our finishing area. So everything that comes out of the wood shop factory ends up here. So basically this is our old school finishing booth. So everything gets painted in here, everything gets sprayed, everything gets primed for graphics and paint right in our paint booth. You can see these guys just came out. They're not laminated yet, but they are just freshly painted. Coming out of the finishing booth, whether it's paint or we're just gonna do natural, which is gonna be laminates. All of our graphics are heat transfer these days. It's pretty much the industry standard. There's one or two guys that are doing silk screen decks anymore. Obviously back in the day, all board graphics were silk screened by hand. These days it's a little bit different process. So we are a little bit unique in that we actually do screen print our transfers. It gets fed through this machine, which is essentially a gigantic roller that heats up and literally melts the graphic into the surface of the board. You'll feed that guy through here, a couple of passes, and then basically the transparent carrier peels off and you're left with a graphic like this Bennett Harada on a natural dip. So a lot of times, to the discerning eye in modern times, you really can't tell the difference between a transferred board and a truly silk screen board. So basically, that's the manufacturing side of things, and the brand side of things with Madrid. Right now, we're actually in our warehouse under the arm of Full Circle Distribution, which is our company.
So much skateboarding products.
A lot of product, man, yeah. It's interesting here again, the two sides of the coin is we have Madrid, the brand and the company. We have Madrid, which is the manufacturing side of things. And so, one of the things I think a lot of younger people, maybe even older people, don't realize is that back in the day, if you bought a Vision, if you bought a Santa Cruz, prior to that, if you bought a Veriflex board, all of those were coming out of the Madrid factory. So back in the day, we were manufacturing for most of the big name companies in the early 80s, early to mid 80s. Okay. It's pretty rad.
From the factory showroom, this is like the office area. I've taken over the TM's desk. Sorry, Danny.
Shout out, Daniel.
This is my desk now, dude. I'm gonna do my IT work from over here and eat your tacos.
This hallway is essentially companies and brands and people that we've collaborated with or special projects we've done for other companies, other brands. Obviously, these shaped boards are one of our personal favorites in the company. These are actual DeLorean shaped skateboards that we did for the Back to the Future reissues. And the graphics on these guys are actually done by a company called DKNG, and they do phenomenal work. So they designed these DeLoreans in all these different shapes. We actually manufacture the boards. These boards are actually silk screen, so all these DeLoreans are actually screen printed graphics. Phenomenal. Obviously, again, this is kind of the Back to the Future wall. So we've got, the faux hoverboard that we also did as part of the reissue series. Doesn't actually hover. Like you saw up above there, The Walking Dead, these were done as a part of, I think, Designer Con. Here's more Back to the Future photos of Back to the Future 2.
Well, that's something huge too. Madrid made the skateboard that Michael J. Fox rode in the movie Back to the Future.
That's it, and Jerry still has one of them.
This is the original board from Back to the Future. Michael J. Fox put his feet on this grip tape and took one very strong Mongo push. Am I right?
It's true.
That's wild, and you guys still have it.
Yeah, Jerry still has it. Like I say, there's 4 in the world supposedly, and as from what we understand, like one's kind of gone missing. So there's 3 that we know of, but there was only 4 like used in the movie, and there's one original.
That is pretty cool.
And then that's our reproduction that we brought back a few years ago, which we got like 90% pretty good, but we're actually going to improve upon it for next year. So I think for a lot of people, that's probably what we're most known for. You know, Back to the Future did so much to introduce skateboarding to a wider audience. And I think it kind of reignited people's interest in skateboarding because it was such a skateboard-centric movie with Marty McFly riding that thing. But yeah, Marty McFly rides a Madrid Valterra, made by us, you know.
Well, I want to point out my favorite one. You already know what it's going to be.
I can think, yeah, I imagine
the XL Heroin Egg board.
Yeah.
I mean, that is a board that is like a bestseller right now. That thing went viral. It's freaking trending. People are purchasing it. And nobody knows it was made right here at Madrid's factory.
Totally, yeah. And I think that we have that master template somewhere. And in fact, it might be over in that corner. We'll have to look for it. But you know, the story there was, you know, Foss and those guys reached out to, I think it was a combination of companies that really weren't willing to do it, weren't willing to try it, and some companies that flat out said, we can't make a board that big, we can't do a shape that size, we just, either they didn't want to do it or they said they couldn't do it. So when Foz and Heroin guys came to us, we said, we'll figure out a way to do it.
And you did it.
Let's do it. So yeah, we did it, which was definitely one of the coolest things we've done as far as custom shapes go. Obviously, yeah, like you said, those things just took off. And as much as we thought, oh, this is such a like weird kind of niche, like novelty thing, dudes have been ripping on those boards. Yeah. Like it's absolutely skatable, even though it's massive and ridiculous. But yeah, those came out of this factory as well. So that was a super rad project we were stoked to work on. We did the 40th anniversary of John Carpenter's Halloween. So these were done a few years back for the 40th, and these were sold at a convention up in Pasadena. We tend to do a lot of stuff for the Vans pool party boards. So we did this a few years back, obviously shaped like an hourglass of all the previous years falling through. That was a fun one, hourglass shaped board. Maui & Sons was a reissue collab that we did this past year. Back in the early 80s when Maui & Sons had skateboards, they were again produced by Madrid in our original factory. So we teamed up with them again to bring back these original graphics on the same concaves and molds. Coffin shaped skateboard, again, we can do any shape you can think of. We did this as like a special Halloween release a couple of years back, so we have a coffin board in the mix. Obviously the big piece de resistance here is the Heroin Egg board. So again, I mean, you can see by the truck holes what it takes to get these things really set up. But I mean, yeah, just to give you some sort of scope of the width of this thing, those are actual true truck hole placements. So imagine setting one of these up and skating. But such an amazing board, such a rad thing we got to do for those guys and collaborate with, and obviously, like, yeah, they're killing these things became a weird phenomenon, so it's pretty sick. This is a Vans shoe sole.
Oh, that's sick.
Yeah, pretty rad. So we got obviously the classic waffle sole.
Can't forget graphic. Voltron, man.
Voltron, yeah, that was a recent one too. So this was done in conjunction with an artist named Han Cholo, and he worked with, I think the guys at Universal own the rights to Voltron. So Voltron shape, I mean, talk about a wild shape. This thing was like a nightmare for those guys to like really shape and get a master template.
Yeah, I mean, look at that, like
head.
the head with the horns
in there.
But I'll be honest, that looks, to me personally, Voltron looks easier to kickflip than Egg Boy over there
by
does.
far.
And the Stranger Things right below.
Yeah, I mean, that's another thing, that's a great photo to kind of represent too with the characters in the movie, or excuse me, in the series. So Max actually rides two Stranger Things boards across season 2 and season 3 of the show.
And
this is our classic Madrid Explosion, dating back to the early 80s, and our classic Madrid Rampage, also from the era. And then we have 2 complete builds of those right here. So these are exact replicas and reproductions that Max skates in the show. And so basically those guys, when they were creating Stranger Things, they were massive Back to the Future fans. So they basically found out that we did the Marty McFly board. They had the Netflix guys get in touch with us and said, hey, you guys made the McFly. We want skateboards for the show we're doing. Show us a catalog from like 1983, 1984. And they picked out those 2 boards to have the character Max ride in the show. So, I mean, this is incredible enough. This is the very first board that Jerry ever pressed.
Oh, whoa.
1977. I'm going to touch it. Yeah, and this is the board, not like it looks like the board. This is the very first board pressed,
board.
1977. Wow. This is the collab we did with Vans, which, I mean, to this day, we still get people asking to bring these shoes back.
Oh, these were the shoes, yeah.
Yeah, the fly shoe.
I think you guys had this hanging out.
Bring it back. This thing, to me, like belongs in a museum, and there's the shoe itself. Unadulterated, pure, skate fortified Madrid.
Leave a comment if you guys want them to bring it back.
Yeah, we got to start like a change.org petition to get these things back in the mix. It's pretty wild. There's, we got some recent stuff, like this is a new pro model we did for Lester Kasai. This came out, he got inducted maybe a year before last. That's when we brought back a new board for him. Daniel Yeager, our TM, this was his second pro model board. This is the second pro model for Desmond Lane, formerly known as Heshlord. He might still be known as Heshlord, but another graphic obviously from the Halloween collab.
And a lot of Jim Henson collabs. You guys definitely have done a lot of work with Jim Henson.
Yeah, totally. We just kind of wrapped our fourth, I guess, technically. So we've done Fraggle Rock, we've done Labyrinth, Dark Crystal we did last year, and we just put out a collection of boards that are, all the graphics are original doodles that Jim Henson himself did. It's been my favorite collab with those guys so far.
So I know that this was probably one of the more skate nerdy type videos that I've ever done. Usually I'm skating a lot more in my videos. Don't forget to hit the subscribe, like, comment, and share buttons all at the same time. That would be great. And please do check out madridskateboards.com or fullcircledistribution.com to get a full list and access into their web store where you can see every single one of their products that they have for sale right now, because in this video, trust me, I was only able to show you guys like the surface of everything that they do have available for sale. They actually did just drop a Texas Chainsaw Massacre collab, and as previously mentioned in the video, a brand new Jim Henson collab, the fourth collab, which this t-shirt is from. And if you guys have been like watching my channel for a while, obviously you know that I also ride for Madrid, and we are dropping a full-length video on July 20th. There's gonna be full parts from myself, Phil Seha, Chris Mossy, Daniel Yeager. There's footage from Blake Smith, Desmond Lane in there, the whole team squatted up. A new announcement too from someone who has a new part, but he's a new rider, and it's not my place to say who it is yet, but that's gonna be announced on July 20th. I do believe we are officially moving the premiere to OC Ramps, but when I get the final word on that, I'll let you guys know. And I still upload at least once a week, if not more. So I'll see you guys on the next upload, I promise. There's gonna be more skating in it.